In a quiet village where winters came with gentle snow and long silences, an old plum tree stood alone at the edge of a hill. Its branches, twisted with time, still remembered how to bloom. Each winter, against the grey hush of the sky, it burst into pale pink blossoms, fragile, fearless, and timeless, like a memory that refuses to fade. Long ago, beneath that very tree, two young souls carved their names into the bark. Li Wen and Xiao Hua, forever. They were inseparable then. He was the blacksmith's son, always smudged with soot, with a laugh that echoed like bells in spring. She was the weaver's daughter, her fingers delicate as silk threads, her voice no louder than falling snow. Each winter, as the first plum blossoms opened, they would meet beneath that tree and share a secret, a poem, a pastry, a promise. One day, when the air was crisp and their hands had grown slightly larger, they stood before the tree once more. Xiao Hua placed a hand over the carving. "If we ever lose each other," she said, eyes solemn, "promise me we'll meet here again, when the plum blossoms return." Li Wen grinned, brushing snow from her shoulder. "I promise, even if I'm 100 years old." But time, as it does, moved without mercy. When they were 16, Li Wen was drafted into the army. The emperor called on every able man to defend the borderlands. He left with a kiss pressed to Xiao Hua's knuckles and a final glance at the blooming tree, its petals falling like snow. For the first few years, letters came. Then fewer. Then none. Xiao Hua waited beneath the tree every winter. Her hands grew calloused from weaving, her eyes weary from watching the road. Her parents, tired of waiting, arranged her marriage to a merchant in a distant province. She resisted, cried, pleaded, but in the end, she went. The plum tree stood alone that winter, and the next, and the next. 30 winters passed. The village changed. The roads were wider, the faces unfamiliar, but the plum tree remained, still blooming when snow kissed the earth. An old man arrived one morning, wrapped in worn robes, his back curved like a bow. His eyes, though clouded with time, searched the village as if chasing a memory. He walked with the aid of a wooden cane, stopping at last before the plum tree. He touched the bark, rough now, but familiar. The carving was faded, weathered by snow and sun, but it was still there. Li Wen and Xiao Hua, forever. A chuckle escaped his lips, soft and cracked. "Still here, old friend." Xiao Hua returned that same winter. Her husband had passed. Her children were grown. There was nothing left to bind her to the merchant's home. Something had tugged at her heart, an ache, a pull, and she found herself walking the long road back to the village of her childhood. She wore a grey cloak, her hair silver and pinned neatly. When she reached the base of the old hill, her breath caught. The plum tree was in bloom, and beneath it stood a man, hunched and quiet, his hand on the trunk. She hesitated, then approached. "It still blooms," she whispered. The man turned. His eyes, dimmed with age, widened. "Xiao Hua?" She gasped softly. The voice, though rasped with age, carried the same warmth, the same wind chime laughter of long ago. "Li Wen." They stood in silence for a heartbeat, two ghosts meeting in the world of the living. Then they smiled. It was the kind of smile that needed no words, no explanations. the kind that reached across decades. They sat beneath the tree, sharing sweet rice cakes she had brought and roasted chestnuts he had carried. Snow fell around them, but they didn't feel the cold. He told her of war, of narrow escapes, of comrades lost, of wounds that never quite healed. When peace returned, he had searched for her, only to find she'd married and vanished from the village. She told him of sleepless nights, of letters clutched in trembling hands, of duty and the dull ache of time, of how each year she had whispered his name beneath the stars. "I kept our promise," she said softly. Li Wen reached out and touched her hand, frail against his, but real. "So did I." The villagers watched them from afar, puzzled by the two elders who met daily beneath the plum tree. They brought chairs and tea, sometimes reading old poetry, sometimes simply watching the blossoms fall. They spoke little of the past. It had already carved itself deep into their hearts. What mattered now was the present, the winter sun, the rustle of petals. One morning, as the blossoms began to fall, the old man came alone. He laid a small silk scarf beneath the tree, embroidered with plum flowers, and sat for a long time, eyes closed, face tilted to the wind. Then he, too, was gone. The villagers buried him beside the tree, and next to him they placed a marker, engraved not with his name, but with his promise. Li Wen and Xiao Hua, forever. And so, each winter, the plum tree blooms. The snow still falls. And some say, on quiet evenings, when the wind rustles through its branches, two figures sit beneath it, one humming a tune, the other reciting an old poem, as they wait for the first blossom to fall. Their love, like the tree, endures, soft, silent, and eternal.